Disclaimer. To the Pharisees and Karens out there.
How dare you!
All guests on this show do not reflect the opinions of the host. The purpose of this show is to have interesting conversations, stretch our minds, and grow.
Not what we want!
If you are looking for an echo chamber, viewer and listener discretion
is advised.
You talk about extreme.
What is happening and what is up? Hold out your glass, because we're about to fill it up.
Torches high.
Look at it from a different perspective.
Hey, what is happening and what is up? Hold out your glass, because we are about to fill it up. Welcome to the Prometheus Lens Podcast, the place where the conversations are always enlightening. I'm your host, Doc Brown, and here we like to use the allegory of the Prometheus Lens to take a second look at everything. Hey guys, if you're new to the channel, welcome to the hero's journey. Be sure to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. Down below we'll have our social medias on their various platforms. Be sure to check those out. I'd be much appreciative. Be sure to click that bell so you don't miss out on a single journey with us. And first and foremost, hey, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, I know ads suck, but for $4 a month, you can enjoy this episode ad-free. Hey, with all the business out of the way, let's just dive into the meat of the matter, guys. I got a guest today that I think you're going to thoroughly enjoy this conversation. I've watched this man's reels and listened to him speak for the past couple years now, and I'm really excited to see a mutual friend, Stephen from the Biblical Hitman, had this gentleman on, and I was like, man, how'd you get a hold of this dude? I'd love to talk with him. And he's like, hey man, just reach out to him. He answers these emails and DMs pretty regularly. So took a swing at the ball, and the man was like, yeah, sure. So we set this conversation up, and I'd just like to welcome to the show for the first of many times, hopefully, Juan from the One-on-One Podcast.
From one of the first Rosicrucians, right? And this text, because various alchemists wrote commentaries on the book of Genesis. And the reason for that being was because they believed that the book of Genesis was encoding how to create the Philosopher's Stone, how to create what they called an unus mundus, or a miniature world, or a miniature reality. And they believed that the book of Genesis, the first chapters, held this secret. So it's very alchemical. Now, I've been called a Gnostic for thinking like that, like, oh, it's so Gnostic. I go, dude. If every time I piss off some denomination of Christianity, I go, hey, which one of the 45,000 are you a part of? Right? Because if you can't even come to a conclusion collectively, anything's game, right? Because you're all interpreting the same thing at the end of the day, 45,000 different ways, even if it's a little subtle change. Well, this sect believe this other sect believe that. Oh, well, here we go. We split off, and now we have our own 45,000 different times, right? So whenever I get called out for something, I'm like, okay. People are like, oh, you're pissing them off. That's fine. There's 45,000 of them. Who cares? Like, this is just another interpretation. Lump me in wherever you want, and we'll be fine. But I am translating this text, and it's a commentary on the book of Genesis by this guy. And it's interesting because it is at the Library of Bavaria, where, again, the Bavarian Illuminati started. So I think that a lot of the secrets from my research into the occult, right, speaking of the Illuminati, in my opinion, it is about, and because you're talking about these garments, right? And this, is it a physical garment? Is it a metaphorical garment? Is it symbolic of something? Are they wearing the skin suit of a Nephilim or something? I know Nimrod was like he wanted to be a Nephilim so bad, but he wasn't a Nephilim, right?
Well, the only thing it says in Genesis, and a lot of people speculate and kind of gather on and postulate, is that it says that the Hebrew word Gibborim was used to describe the Nephilim giants. But I mean, it translates to English as mighty, so it could be a mighty king, a mighty hunter. But that word is synonymous with giants. But it says in the book of Genesis that Nimrod becomes a Gibborim. And like I said, that book of Jasher, it actually attributes these garments to that. it says that at the coming of age, at 20 years old, he's given these garments from his father, and that when he puts them on, he becomes a Gibborim.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, and the Hebrews say it was the coverings of the Nakash originally. You know, the
serpent,
Hebrew
right?
word for serpent. And extra biblical books say it was the skins, you know, the allegorical coverings. But I talk about in Ezekiel 28 where it's describing Satan there. You know, it says, you were in the garden of God, perfect in your ways until iniquity was found in you. Every precious stone was your covering. And it lists, you know, beryl, onyx, topaz, jasper, onyx. The Masoretic text lists 9 stones, but the Septuagint lists 12. And the way it describes it, it is a perfect mirrored image of the priestly ephod that the priests wore when entering the holiest of holies. So it paints Satan in a priestly role.
That's the plate that they wear, like the techno garb, I've heard it called, or it's like conductive of electricity or something or other.
Yeah.
These techno wizards. Yeah, it could have been like one of the first computer chips, right? And I think that's why we're interacting and we're dealing with things outside of space and time. And I think technology plays a large role into that. And this ties into the Bible. This ties into all this stuff because we know in the Bible, there was a lot of espionage. There was a lot of reconnaissance. There was a lot of warfare. And it's interesting because I believe that the occult was just that, a way of encoding information for the initiated to know what was being talked about, but it was all BS. It was all a troll. And these guys, all these occultists like Aleister Crowley and all these guys who were also spies allegedly, right? I think that people extracted a real system from magic based on it being a framework for a whole nother thing, right? So in the bare bones, the occult might be BS. It might be all made up. But people adopted it either way, and to them it's real. Think about this, right? You can tell the government, you can write to the IRS right now or any governmental entity and tell them, hey, I can summon the Nephilim and Cthulhu by using the Sigillum of Amet, the book you had there, and having this Enochian system, and I can bring forth Ragnarok right now by talking to these entities on the other side. You think they're going to care? No. Now, tell them that you have blackmail or something with some politician in a room somewhere with somebody he wasn't supposed to be with, and you have pictures and video evidence or whatever it is, and I think you might turn up dead. I mean, that's how it usually turns out, because the true occulted knowledge, the true Faustian pact, in my opinion, is real tangible information such as blackmail. And that's why blackmail runs our entire government. I mean, we see this time and time again. Guys like old Jeffrey, the Diddler, all these Weinstein, all these guys, right? All these industries have their own occultists, if you will, cinemagicians or whatever they are. And that's the true information that would quite literally get you killed, because a lot of these occultists and alchemists, they talk about like, oh, it's going to destroy the fabric of reality. The information, the Faustian pact, you made a deal with the devil. What did he have to give up? His soul. Oh, man. It doesn't. I don't think it works, man. I think that it works here. I think it works on the mental plane. And I think, again, back to the idea of cryptography, hiding information in plain view. And only those who can read it are able to extract the information. So these occultists were just a front, right? And the reason I say this is because John Veyer, this is an interesting one, Johann Veyer was a live-in student at the age of like 13 years old for Henry Cornelius Agrippa. Weird. But anyways, Henry Cornelius Agrippa wrote the 3 books.
They liked the little boys back then, you know.
Hey, you said it, dude. I didn't say it. It's just weird, right?
They're dotes and antidotes. They had to get the antidote from the little boys and girls.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. So he was also doing stuff with his dog, allegedly, right? That was Satan, according to some. The he wrote the occult books, philosophy of the occult, the 3 books, and he contributed a lot to occultism.
With the price of eggs and bread slowly approaching a day's wages, it's more important than ever than to secure the value of your dollar. One thing that has remained steady is gold and silver throughout the ages. Back in Roman times, a piece of gold would get you a toga. That's the equivalent of $3,000 today. That still remains true to this day. For a full suit, shoes, tie, you're looking at about $3,000. Because gold and silver holds its value. So if you're tired of watching the value of your dollar go down every single day, it's time to get off your hands and make a move. I've recently teamed with Cornerstone Asset Metals. Reach out to those guys for all of your financial needs. It's time to trade in that forever devaluing dollar into hard assets that you can hold, like gold and silver. Be sure to check the link down in the description or the number on the screen. And hey, tell them Doc Brown sent you. Are you a hunter, a hiker, or just an outdoor enthusiast? Well, if you are, you know that good quality gear is hard to come by. And finding all-American made is like finding Bigfoot in the woods. Hence the name of Squatch Survival Gear. Head on over to squatchsurvivalgear.com. Use the code PLP10 for 10% off store-wide.
Again, it wasn't anything I had seen before, and the people with me had never seen anything like that before either. So, boom, UFO. Now it's the only one I've ever seen. And so, yes, back again, it could have been a mixture of all the things. It could have been part fake, part real. And how you're saying in the moment, they might have actually had an experience where you're messing around with sigils and symbols and things you don't really know about because you're not 100% sure about it. And it's a system that's being dictated through you from the other side. Maybe you got something right once or twice and something really did happen. Right? So there is things to support the other side as far as, okay, maybe not the whole occult is fake, but I think a majority of it is, because back into Aleister Crowley, think about it this way. If you could infiltrate a country from the inside out without having to send your army, or without having to spend the resources other than sending a guy and maybe getting a building out of it, blah, 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 who cares? What a better way than a guy like Aleister Crowley starting a Thelemic church or something in these circles, the secret society in this other country. And usually what ends up happening is within those circles are usually the most influential people, right? That's why they say, the Freemasons run the world. A lot of these guys are attracted to that. Now, is it because of the occult powers? Is it for the social circle and cocktail hour? I don't know. But I know a lot of people who join these circles thinking that they're going to extract some sort of, esoteric information, and it's just dudes hanging out. Now, I'm not saying that behind the scenes, they're not that next level of dudes actually doing that sort of stuff, but 98% or 99% of those guys are just there to hang out, get away from their wives. They're retired, they're bored, right? And they're just doing they're just LARPing, right? So Aleister Crowley would go to these other places, and you can take this and extrapolate it outwards for any occultist or for any cult or religion or whatever. And you start a lodge in one of these other countries, attract the most influential people within that country, in their government, in their whatever circles, the higher circles, and then you influence them and you bring change without having to spend all this other extracurricular stuff. I mean, that's genius, right? That's they're playing 5D chess at this point, and I think that's part of it as well. I started looking into it, and I stumbled across it from Manly P. Hall's work, and I stumbled across it in his work in a story about this Count Count von Kufstein. And it turns out our boy von Kufstein holds the Guinness or Guinness World Record for largest homunculus. And I'm like, what the hell? What is this? Like, it's a little. You can literally look it up on their website. It's an actual world record for the largest homunculus. And it turns out there's a story of this guy who he was a Freemason. He was hanging out with this mystic monk, and he allegedly created 10 of these entities. And they're buried somewhere too. Like there's a story that their bodies and their bones might be buried somewhere, but nobody knows obviously where it is. But Manly P. Hall is retelling the story about this guy and the things that these little creatures were doing. They were trying to escape from their glass vessels. They were fighting with one another. One was a king, the other one was a queen. There was a monk in one of them. One was like a blue spirit, red spirit. It was like a combination of like these weird things. It makes you think of like chess, or very symbolic. One was a king, one was a queen, right? So again, very weird. But Manly P. Hall is writing about it, and I'm reading about it, and I'm like, it's really not clicking for me. I'm like, what? I already don't understand alchemy.
What the hell is going on here?
Yeah, what the hell is even that, right? So, and then I look it up, right? Like I start looking into it, and then I stumble across this 9th century grimoire, the Liber Vitae, and then the floodgates open up. So when you start looking into the homunculus and you really start to peel it apart, what really intrigues me about it, right, are this artificially created human through the use of alchemy. Now, this human or this thing, this entity, is magic. Why? Because it comes from magic. It comes from the art. It comes from alchemy. So the way some people interpret is that they're liminal species. Some people consider them a cryptid of sorts because they exist in two realities at once. They're in our reality, and then they're on the other side, whatever that other side is. And that's why they're able to, and that's why the creator or the practitioner is able to then take the homunculus, embrace yourself, dissect it or vivisect it, and use its various body parts for various magical operations. Such as if you take its spleen or its liver, I forgot which one, I'm sorry, and you wrap it in the skin of its forehead, you're able to see demons. If you take, the rooster and do all this other stuff and mix it up with the blood, you're able to speak to the demons. You're able to drive people insane. You're able to become impervious to pain. You're able to walk on water. You're able to do all these things. You acquire godlike powers or become a god by creating this little thing, right? In the privacy of your own lab. No one has to know about it. And there was guys who were allegedly trying to do it. I have evidence of guys trying to do it as late as the 80s, and at least the alchemical homunculus. And what's interesting to me about all of this, and the reason I think it really intrigues people, is because I think we're at a point in time in history, technologically, where it is possible, where they are growing
all
animals.
The CRISPR stuff, man, the direwolf stuff that just happened. Yeah, I agree. If it is possible, we're closer than ever before.
Absolutely. So, again, people go, "Oh, Juan, there's a lot of symbology in those grimoires," and yes, that's not the problem. It goes back again to what I was talking about earlier, where to the uninitiated, guess what? They're going to try to create the homunculus at face value. They're going to try to follow that instructional manual word for word. Right. So there's going to be guys that even if the homunculus represents something else, and I do think about that as well, where it could be used as a sort of mnemonic device, where it could be used as a reference point for something else. So when you think
machine, maybe
he was creating these things, right? These homunculus, but as soon as they would come to life, he would destroy them. And one time somebody was like, "Dude, what are you doing? You just created this artificial being." He's like, "Well, I don't know if God died for that homunculus' sin. I don't know if God is going to put a soul in it, or if it's going to be inhabited by a demon, or if it's going to be taken," because people believe that homunculus had no souls. Some scholars also have talked about homunculus being artificial demons because you're possessed in order to create a homunculus. So think about like like the mad scientist, right? He's actually being possessed by these other powers to do what he's doing. You think about Frankenstein
comes to mind. Yeah.
Frankenstein, which allegedly was based on a real guy that was doing like experiments with cadavers. And Mary Shelley, she was well traveled and knew about this guy and heard about maybe some legend surrounding him, and that's what supposedly inspired her story of Frankenstein. So a lot of these things are rooted in truth, right? And we see that time and time again, where a lot of these movies that we all know and love usually have some, like any conspiracy as well, have some sort of truth or some sort of inspiration from the original source, even if it's taken over the
references
top
or little hat tips to the initiated, even
exactly
the mini me from Austin Powers,
how did the mini me come into, like, what is that a clone of him? So mini me,
I think Austin, she got pregnant, didn't she? I can't remember though.
So
it's
mini
been a
me,
long time.
Let's see history. Before Dr. Evil was sent back in time to 1969, his minion made him a clone. The clone was similar in every manner, although was 1/8 of his size. Upon being introduced to his clone, Dr. Evil immediately declared, "Breathtaking, I shall call him Mini-Me." So he has spoken no dialogue beyond his occasional frightened E. Otherwise, he is as silent except for when he does his evil laugh with Dr. Evil. He also likes to lip sync the occasional line when Dr. Evil raps. And so, yeah.
Yeah. When he came back the second time, he slept with that evil woman and she got pregnant. And then when he got unfrozen the second time, I think, is when he discovered that she was pregnant and had a boy. And he comes back when he's like 16 or 17-year-old. I was getting them mixed up.
He also tends to dry hump random things.
Horny little bastard.
So again, this creation, right? He's this thing. Now, where was I? The concept of Frankenstein. You also have the Jewish version, which is the golem, which is it's different than a homunculus, because a homunculus is like blood and bones, artificially created man. A golem is formed through clay and animated through word magic, right? And the story goes, in Prague, Rudolph II wanted to take out the Jews, how it always happens throughout history, right? For whatever reason, who cares? And they created this android being, this AI almost, to protect them. And then, in typical fashion, how we see in all these movies, one night they forgot to shut it off. And it didn't end well because it went on a rampage. It got bigger and bigger and bigger. And in some stories, it falls over and crushes the rabbi that created it. And in other stories, he's able to subdue it. And then they hide the creation in the attic of a church or something or other, right? So there's various versions of it. But it's interesting because I just saw the movie Minecraft with my son, and I didn't know that the villagers, they looked kind of Jewish, right? They had the very big noses. And I'm asking him, I'm like, what the hell are those? He's like, oh, those are the villagers, Dad. I'm like, why haven't I ever seen, like, I've played with him, but I've never noticed like the thing. And Jack Black, which he's also Jewish, he talks to one of the characters like, hey, what's that thing? He goes, oh, that's a golem. It's just here, I'm paraphrasing, he's a gentle giant as long as you don't mess with the villagers. Again, it's a golem, like in these stories, that's created to protect the villagers. And in the game, as long as you don't mess with the villagers, the golem doesn't go after you. So again, it's in the movies, this concept that's related to Frankenstein, Terminator, AI, I think is another form of a homunculus, because if you think about Gottfried Leibniz, which is essentially the father of binary code, right? The ones and zeros in our computers. He had this concept. He was obsessed with Rene Descartes. He thought that Rene Descartes had discovered the secrets of reality. There's a whole thing on that. But he also had this concept called the monad. And the thing about the monad is it's about breaking God down into a substance, into a monad, right? These building blocks of reality in a sort of weird way. Now, if you take AI and you really extrapolate it, so mind you, this guy, the ones and zeros that run behind the matrix or the code or whatever it is, in our computers and in everything nowadays, because technology is in everything.
Hey, what is happening, my dirty fingernail theologian? If you enjoyed that highlight reel, be sure and check the link down in the description for the Apple and Spotify, and there you can find the full discussion. That is so tasty, it'll make your tongue slap the back of your brains out, Daddy. Torch is high.